Ethan Ward had always loved stars. As a young boy, he would lie on the roof of his small house on Earth, staring into the endless blackness above, imagining planets, alien worlds, and civilizations far beyond human reach. But nothing in his life had prepared him for the sight of Aurelian 4 rising on the horizon. A moon that glowed faintly with silver and green light, its surface jagged, barren, and cruel. His ship shuddered violently as it descended through the thin atmosphere, metal creaking and sparks flying. The warning lights inside the cockpit blinked frantically, accompanied by a shrill alarm. Ethan gritted his teeth and adjusted the controls. He had been trained for emergencies, but no training could erase the panic he felt as the landing thrusters failed one after another. When the ship finally slammed into the rocky surface, Ethan was thrown against his harness. Pain shot through his shoulder and ribs, but he forced himself to move. The emergency beacon had partially deployed, and the communication system flickered weakly. There was no guarantee that anyone would hear him in this remote sector of space. He was utterly alone. Surveying the damaged ship, Ethan realized he had no choice. Repairs would be difficult, and the environment outside was unpredictable. He needed shelter, and fast. Donning his suit, he stepped out into the alien landscape. The air was thin but breathable, the gravity slightly less than Earth's. Jagged rocks jutted from the ground like the teeth of some giant creature, and a faint green mist swirled over the surface, giving the place an otherworldly feeling. Every step he took made the rocks grind under his boots. Echoing in the emptiness, Ethan's eyes caught sight of a strange structure in the distance, tall, smooth, and glowing faintly with embedded lights that pulsed in rhythm with some unknown energy source. Its shape was elegant, almost organic, unlike anything he had ever seen. Curiosity pushed him forward, even as the warning systems in his brain screamed caution. As he approached, he noticed the entrance, a tall arch that seemed carved from a single piece of alien metal. The door was ajar, moving slightly as if pushed by a wind he could not feel. Ethan entered cautiously, scanning with his handheld scanner. The interior was vast, echoing with a strange resonance. Smooth walls curved overhead, reflecting the pale light of bioluminescent panels. The air inside was warmer, almost breathable without the helmet, and a faint hum of energy filled the space. Then he saw her dot at first. He thought it was some alien technology, a holographic projection. But as he stepped closer, he realized it was not a machine at all. It was a person, or at least something humanoid. A young woman hovered slightly above the ground in a chair-like device. Her skin shimmered faintly with a silvery hue, and her eyes were large and expressive, glowing with a pale green light. She looked fragile, her body thin and weak. Yet there was a quiet strength in her gaze that made Ethan pause. Who are you?" Ethan asked, his voice echoing softly in the chamber. The figure tilted her head, studying him. "I am Princess Lyra," she said, her voice soft but firm. "You are not." Like the others, Ethan froze. He had encountered alien life in simulations and theoretical studies, but never in reality, and certainly never an alien princess. I'm Ethan," he replied carefully. "I didn't mean to intrude. My ship. I crashed." Her eyes flickered with something like surprise, a mix of curiosity and caution. "You are human," she said simply. "They are rare visitors." Ethan stepped closer, noticing the device holding her up. It hummed gently, wires and tubes connecting to her body, keeping her alive. He realized she must be ill, or perhaps disabled. A pang of empathy struck him. Humans and aliens might be different, but no one deserved to suffer alone. "I can help," he said without thinking. I can try to fix things. Maybe even help you get stronger." She regarded him silently for a moment, her glowing eyes analyzing every detail. "Why would you help me?" she asked. "Because it's what I do," Ethan replied. "I fix things. I repair, and because no one should be alone, especially not someone like you." There was a long pause. Then, slowly, she nodded. "Very well, human. You may assist me." The next hours passed in a blur of motion and thought. Ethan examined her life support systems, making careful notes, adjusting circuits, and testing functions. The technology was far advanced compared to Earth's standards, but he had always believed that ingenuity and determination could bridge any gap. He worked tirelessly, his hands moving over alien panels, his mind calculating adjustments and alternatives. Lyra watched him silently at first, but then her curiosity grew. "You are different," she said. "My people never attempt repairs like this. They follow rules, not solutions." Ethan smiled faintly. "Sometimes rules get in the way of helping people. Sometimes you just have to try." Her eyes softened slightly. "Perhaps humans have courage that my people lack." By the time the dim light of Aurelianiv's twin moons crept into the chamber, the first signs of change were visible. Lyra's systems were stabilizing, her vital signs improving. A faint color returned to her cheeks, and for the first time in many cycles, her lips curved into a small smile. "You save me," she whispered, almost in disbelief. "No," Ethan said gently. "You're saving yourself. I'm just helping." There was a silence that stretched between them, filled only by the soft hum of machinery and the distant howl of the wind outside. Two beings from different worlds, brought together by accident, connected by the fragile thread of empathy and hope. As the night wore on, Ethan found himself speaking of Earth, of humanity's resilience, and of the countless times humans had faced impossible odds and survived. Lyra listened intently, her large eyes reflecting the light, absorbing every story, every emotion. For the first time in her life, she felt a warmth she had not known, a feeling beyond the cold precision of her people's technology, beyond the rigid rules of her palace. "You speak of hope as if it is real," she said softly. "It is," Ethan replied. "Sometimes you just have to hold on long enough to see it." When dawn arrived, the chamber glowed with the soft light of Aurelianiv's twin suns. Ethan stepped back, exhausted but satisfied. Lyra's systems were stable, her breathing calm. The fragile bond they had formed was more than mutual respect. It was the beginning of trust, of understanding, and perhaps of something deeper. For the first time in her life, Princess Lyra felt that being fragile did not mean being powerless. And for the first time, Ethan realized that this accidental meeting was far from ordinary. It was the start of something that could change both their worlds. Outside, the barren moon stretched endlessly, silent and indifferent. But inside that chamber, to strangers, a human and an alien princess had begun a journey that neither could have predicted. A journey of courage, ingenuity, and connection. And somewhere in the silence, as the twin suns climbed higher in the alien sky, a quiet thought formed in Ethan's mind. This is only the beginning. Days passed slowly on the desolate moon of Aurelian 4. Yet time seemed to move differently inside the quiet chamber where Ethan and Princess Lyra shared space. Ethan had made a small corner of the alien structure livable, repairing part of the energy system and setting up a rudimentary shelter near her hovering chair. Supplies from his crashed ship were limited, but he made the most of them, fashioning tools and devices that could help maintain Lyra's life support systems. Lyra observed him silently at first. Her glowing green eyes followed his every movement with precision, as if measuring his heart and mind at the same time. For a being born into royalty and privilege, dependent on others for her survival, Ethan's simple human ways were both strange and fascinating. He was rough-handed yet careful, making small jokes when a wire snapped or a circuit misbehaved, trying to make her smile. And eventually, she did. "You always make mistakes when you work?" she asked one evening, her voice soft and curious. Ethan chuckled, wiping sweat from his brow. "Mistakes are part of fixing things. The trick is learning from them." Lyra tilted her head, considering his words. "Your people, humans, you are not perfect, yet you survive. You adapt. That's the only choice we have," Ethan replied. "Adapt, fix, and move forward. There's no other way." Her gaze lingered on him, thoughtful. "I see now. Courage is not only about fighting. It is about trying, even when failure is possible." For the first time, she looked at her own limitations differently. She had lived her life confined to a chair, her people telling her she was weak and incapable. Yet here was a human who faced far greater dangers every day, and he never gave up. Slowly, Lyra began to feel something she had not felt in years. Hope. Ethan, too, found himself learning from her. The princess was not just fragile. She was brilliant. Even with her physical limitations, her mind was sharp, and her understanding of alien science surpassed his own in many ways. She would ask questions, propose theories, and sometimes correct his assumptions. Ethan had expected to teach her, but he realized that they were learning together. One evening, Ethan was working on a complex energy module that powered the hovering chair. Sparks flew as he adjusted a delicate connector. Suddenly, a miscalculation sent a jolt of electricity through the device. He yelled and jumped back, but Lyra's hand shot out instinctively. "Careful," she warned. Ethan laughed, rubbing his arm. "I'm fine. You know, I think I prefer your warnings to the alarms on my ship. You are reckless," she said. But her eyes were amused. "But I suppose humans are always reckless." "It is." Charming. For a long time, they worked in companionable silence. The only sounds the low hum of machines and their footsteps on the metallic floor. Ethan fixed systems that had long been neglected by her people, using ingenuity where tradition had failed. Lyra guided him, explaining what the panels were meant to do, and together, they improvised solutions that neither would have thought possible alone. One night, after repairs were complete, Ethan stepped outside the chamber to look at the twin moons. The sky was a swirl of silver and green, clouds moving slowly over jagged mountains. He felt a strange mix of loneliness and exhilaration. This place was hostile, remote, and dangerous, yet he was not afraid. He had someone to protect, someone who had, unknowingly, given him purpose. When he returned, he found Lyra staring out of a tall window. Her glow seemed softer in the moonlight, her expression thoughtful. "You seem different tonight," Ethan said, taking a cautious step closer. "I'm learning," she replied simply. "I have always been told that my limitations define me, that I am weak, but watching you, working beside you, I realize it is not weakness that matters. It is action, courage, will." Ethan nodded, understanding more than she realized. "It's the same for humans. We are weak in many ways, but we survive because we try. And sometimes, trying is more important than winning." Her eyes softened, and for a moment, the distance between them disappeared. She was not a princess confined to rules and traditions. She was a person capable of thought, feeling, and change. And Ethan, for all his human imperfections, was someone she trusted. Days turned into a rhythm of shared work and quiet moments. Ethan would repair circuits and machines while Lyra watched, occasionally offering guidance or suggestions. They began to share stories of their lives. Ethan spoke of Earth, of oceans, forests, and cities filled with people of every kind. Lyra told him about Aurelian society, its strict rules, its reverence for technology, and the loneliness she had always felt as a princess who could not move freely. "You think I am weak," she said one evening, her voice tinged with sadness. "But I am more afraid of being alone than of being helpless." "You're not alone anymore," Ethan said quietly. "I'm here, and I'm not going anywhere." For the first time, Lyra allowed herself to smile fully. It was not a small, tentative curve of her lips, but a true expression of warmth. "Perhaps humans can teach even a princess lessons about life," she said softly. Ethan laughed, shaking his head. "I think we teach each other, princess. We're not so different, you and I." As the moonlight streamed through the chamber windows, they shared quiet moments that went beyond words. Ethan would tell jokes, sometimes silly, sometimes absurd, just to see her laugh. And she would, her glowing eyes twinkling with amusement. Lyra began to move slightly in her chair, testing the limits of the support devices Ethan had repaired. Each small motion was a victory, and Ethan celebrated with her, clapping and cheering as if she were a soldier winning a battle. Their bond deepened not through grand gestures, but through small acts of trust and courage. Ethan would repair a failing component. Lyra would guide him through alien schematics. He would share stories of human failures and triumphs. She would reflect on the ways tradition had held her back. Together, they created something new, a bridge between two worlds. Then came a night when Lyra finally spoke of something more personal, something she had hidden for cycles. I have not left this chamber for many years, she admitted. My illness, my limitations, they made my people see me as weak, as a burden. I have always feared that nothing I do matters. Ethan placed a reassuring hand on her chair's armrest, careful not to startle her. What matters is not what others think. What matters is what you choose to do. And look at you now, learning, growing, surviving. That's strength, princess. That's courage. She regarded him with an intensity that made him pause. You believe in me. I do. He said simply. I believe in people. And I believe in you, for the first time in cycles. Lyra felt something she had almost forgotten. Hope that was not tied to rules, expectations, or tradition. It was raw, human hope, fueled by trust, courage, and kindness. And it was intoxicating. That night, as they settled near the chamber window to watch the twin moons rise again, they did not speak. Words were unnecessary. The bond had been formed through shared struggle, small victories, and the quiet courage to try, even when failure was possible. Lyra rested her head slightly toward Ethan, a gesture of trust and comfort, and he did not pull away. Outside, the harsh winds of Aurelian 4 continued to whip across the barren surface, indifferent to the small miracles inside the alien structure. But within those walls, two beings from distant worlds had begun to change one another. A fragile princess was learning that limitations did not define her, and a human engineer was discovering that bravery was not only measured by survival, but by empathy, patience, and belief in others. For both of them, the days ahead would hold more challenges than they could imagine. Yet, for now, they had found something rare and precious: trust, friendship, and the first sparks of a connection that could transcend galaxies. And as the twin moons bathed the chamber in silver-green light, Ethan and Lyra both knew, deep in their hearts, that this accidental meeting was no longer a coincidence. It was destiny, somewhere in the silent hum of machines and the soft glow of alien lights. A quiet thought formed in Lyra's mind. Perhaps the human is not only a stranger. Perhaps he is the key to a life I never thought possible. And in Ethan's mind, a similar thought flickered. I came here to survive, but I have found something more, a purpose. And a friend. Perhaps even more than a friend. The twin suns of Aurelian 4 hung low over the jagged horizon, casting long shadows across the rocky surface. Ethan had grown accustomed to the alien light and the eerie silence of the moon. Yet something in the air felt different that morning, a subtle tension, a vibration that seemed to resonate through the ground itself. He had just finished recalibrating Lyra's life support systems when a distant hum grew louder, almost mechanical, yet undeniably powerful. He glanced at Lyra, who had begun to hover slightly higher in her chair, testing the limits of the systems he had repaired. The hum intensified, and soon a shadow passed over the structure, followed by a sudden flash of reflective light. "They're here," Lyra said softly, her voice steady but filled with an unspoken warning. Ethan followed her gaze to the sky. Dozens of sleek, metallic ships descended through the thin atmosphere, their designs elegant yet intimidating. The Aurelian fleet, returning to the moon after many cycles, had tracked the princess. Their purpose was clear: to retrieve Lyra and enforce the strict protocols of the Empire. Ethan's heart raced. "We need a plan," he said, trying to stay calm. "Do they know I'm here?" Lyra shook her head. "They expect to find me alone. They did not anticipate a human being with me. That could change everything." The first ship touched down near the rocky plateau, sending clouds of dust into the thin atmosphere. The doors opened, and figures in sleek, armored uniforms stepped forward, their expressions a mixture of concern and authority. At their center was a figure who radiated command, the High Counselor of Aurelian 4, an older, stern-faced woman who regarded Lyra with a mixture of frustration and disappointment. "Princess Lyra," the counselor said, her voice carrying across the rocky expanse. "You have disobeyed the laws of the Empire. Your actions have endangered your people and yourself." Lyra remained silent for a moment, her glowing green eyes fixed on the counselor. Then she spoke, her voice clear and unwavering. I have not endangered anyone. I have chosen to survive, and I have chosen someone to help me. This human is not a threat. He has saved my life." The counselor's gaze flicked to Ethan, who stood behind Lyra, his hand slightly raised to show he meant no harm. The alien officers exchanged uneasy glances. "A human?" one of them muttered. "They are unpredictable, dangerous." Ethan stepped forward, feeling the weight of the moment. "I'm not here to fight," he said firmly. "I'm here to help. Princess Lyra was in danger, and I did what anyone would do. I won't leave her side because she matters, and because she trusted me." There was a pause, filled only by the low hum of the fleet's engines and the distant wind. Then Lyra spoke again, her voice stronger now. "He stays, not because I am weak, but because he has helped me discover my strength. He has shown me courage, compassion, and hope. If the Empire cannot understand that, it is the Empire that is blind." The counselor's eyes narrowed. She had expected compliance, obedience, and humility. But here was a princess, once frail and confined, standing up for herself with a human at her side. It was unprecedented, almost unthinkable. "You will leave," the counselor said finally, her tone icy. "This human has no place among us. He must be removed." Lyra's hands trembled slightly, but she did not falter. "No," she said simply, "I will not leave. He has earned his place here, not by blood or tradition, but by action and heart." Ethan stepped closer, feeling a surge of determination. "I may be from another world, but I understand loyalty and courage. I'm not going anywhere. If the council wants me gone, they'll have to take me by force, and I doubt that will solve anything." The alien officers exchanged uneasy looks. They had never seen such defiance, especially from a princess who had always been seen as fragile. The laws of the Empire dictated obedience, yet here was Lyra, standing tall in her hovering chair, and Ethan, standing with calm resolve. The counselor's expression softened slightly, not with approval, but with recognition. She had underestimated the human. She had also underestimated the princess. "You are strong," she admitted quietly, almost to herself. "Stronger than we gave you credit for." Ethan looked at Lyra, noticing a faint smile on her lips. The princess who had been fragile and dependent was now a force to be reckoned with. Her courage had inspired him, just as his determination had inspired her. Together, they were a symbol of what could happen when trust, ingenuity, and hope joined forces. The counselor raised her hand, signaling the other officers to hold their positions. "We will not interfere for now," she said, her tone measured. "But understand this, your actions will have consequences. You may have gained temporary freedom, but the Empire watches closely." Lyra inclined her head. "I understand," she replied, "but I will not apologize for seeking life, for seeking hope, or for choosing someone who has shown me both." Ethan placed a reassuring hand near her chair. "You're not alone," he said. "We faced this together." The counselor's ship lifted off, the officers following reluctantly. The fleet remained nearby, silent but vigilant. The immediate threat had passed, but the presence of the Aurelian military reminded them both that the struggle was far from over. Survival had brought them together, but loyalty, courage, and trust would keep them united in the trials ahead. After the ships disappeared into the horizon, Lyra exhaled deeply, her glowing eyes dimming slightly as relief washed over her. "That was more intense than I expected," she admitted, a hint of laughter in her voice. "I have not had to speak like that in cycles. It feels strange." Ethan smiled, adjusting a tool in his hands. "You did amazing. Standing up to them. You prove what I've always believed. Courage isn't about physical strength. It's about heart, conviction, and the willingness to act even when fear is present." Lyra considered his words carefully. "And I would not have acted so if you had not been here. Your presence, your courage, it has changed me." Ethan's heart warmed. "And your trust has changed me too. I came here to survive, but I found something more important: friendship, respect, and maybe even something like family." For a long while, they sat in quiet reflection, listening to the soft hum of the chamber and the distant wind across the rocky surface. Outside, Aurelian remained harsh and unforgiving, but inside, a small space had been carved out for hope, courage, and trust. That night, as the twin moons bathed the chamber in silver-green light, Ethan and Lyra made plans. They knew the fleet would return, that the Empire would not simply let the human remain. Yet, for the first time, Lyra felt empowered to act for herself. She would no longer be a passive figure in the Empire's rigid structure. She had a choice now, and she intended to use it. Ethan worked through the night, strengthening the life support systems, reinforcing the chamber's defenses, and preparing for any eventuality. Lyra offered guidance, her mind sharp and clear despite her previous physical limitations. Together, they created a system that combined human ingenuity with Aurelian technology, a fusion neither could have achieved alone. As dawn approached, Lyra looked at Ethan with quiet gratitude. "I do not know what comes next," she said softly, "but I know this: I will not face it alone. You have given me courage I never knew I had." Ethan smiled, placing a hand on her chair. "And you've shown me that courage comes in many forms. You're stronger than anyone I've ever met, Princess." Remember that. Outside, the barren landscape of Aurelian 4 seemed less hostile now. The shadows of the jagged rocks no longer felt threatening, and the soft glow of the moons promised a new beginning. For Ethan and Lyra, the arrival of the Aurelian fleet had been a challenge, a test of courage, trust, and unity. And they had passed, yet both knew the real test was only beginning. The Empire would not easily accept the bond between a human and a princess. There would be trials, confrontations, and decisions that could change the course of both worlds. But for now, they had each other, and sometimes that was enough. As the twin suns rose over the horizon, casting light over the alien landscape, Ethan whispered quietly, almost to himself, "We've come this far, together. Whatever happens next, we face it as one." Lyra's glowing eyes met his, and she nodded. Together, she echoed, a single word carrying a promise, a bond, and the strength to face whatever the future held. And somewhere in the silent hum of the chamber, a thought formed in both their minds, one they did not need to speak aloud. No matter what the Empire says, we will not be broken. We will not be divided. We will survive, and we will thrive. The harsh winds of Aurelian 4 had calmed, leaving the jagged landscape bathed in the soft light of the twin suns. The alien moons hung low on the horizon, casting long silver shadows across the rocky plains. Inside the chamber, a quiet tension lingered, different from the fear and urgency of the fleet's arrival. This tension was deeper, more personal, carrying the weight of choices that could change lives forever. Ethan and Lyra sat near the chamber window, the repaired systems humming softly around them. It had been several cycles since the fleet departed, yet neither had spoken of the future. The bond they shared had deepened beyond trust and survival. It was something intangible but undeniable, a connection forged through shared struggles, courage, and small victories. Lyra turned her glowing eyes toward Ethan. "There is something I must tell you," she said quietly, her voice carrying a mixture of determination and vulnerability. "My people, the Empire, they have never accepted such bonds. Relationships are dictated by duty, tradition, and bloodline, and yet, I feel compelled to ask something of you that may seem impossible." Ethan looked at her carefully, sensing the seriousness in her tone. "Whatever it is, Princess, you can ask. I will listen." She hesitated, her delicate hands resting on the sides of her hovering chair. "I wish for you to become my honor-bonded partner." The words hung in the air like a fragile crystal. Ethan blinked, stunned. Honor-bonded partnership was the Aurelian equivalent of marriage, a sacred union that had never been formed between a human and an Aurelian. It was a commitment not only of companionship but of shared responsibility, loyalty, and life itself. You want me to?" Ethan stammered, trying to process the enormity of her proposal. "I'm just a human from another world. I don't even know if I belong in your galaxy, let alone in your empire." Lyra's eyes softened, glowing a gentle green. "It is not about your origin," she said. "It is about your actions. You have saved me, protected me, and shown me courage, compassion, and understanding. That is what matters." You are worthy not because of where you come from, but because of who you are. Ethan felt a warmth spread through his chest, a mix of surprise, honor, and something deeper, a feeling he had not expected to experience on this distant moon. And you? You really want this? He asked softly, leaning closer. I do, Lyra replied, her voice steady. I have seen what courage and heart can accomplish. I have felt what trust and companionship mean. I cannot imagine facing the future without you by my side. You have given me strength I never knew I had, and I want to share my life with you, fully, completely, as equals. Ethan swallowed hard, emotions warring within him. He had never expected to be part of something so monumental. And yet, as he looked at Lyra, at the princess who had once been fragile, who now radiated courage and determination, he understood the truth of her words. She had chosen him, not because he was human, but because he had earned her trust and admiration. I don't know what to say, he admitted. This is more than I ever imagined, more than I deserve. You deserve it, Lyra said firmly, her glowing eyes meeting his. You have shown that love, loyalty, and courage are not limited by species or tradition. You have proven that true connection comes from heart and action, not bloodline or expectation. If you say yes, it is because you choose it, not because of obligation. That is the meaning of honor-bonded partnership. Ethan paused, letting the weight of her words sink in. The twin moons cast a soft glow across the chamber, illuminating her face, her determined eyes, and the slight, hopeful smile that made his heart ache. He realized that his feelings for her had grown beyond friendship, beyond admiration. He had come to care for her deeply, for her courage, her intelligence, and her indomitable spirit. Finally, he spoke, his voice calm but resolute. Then, yes, I will. I will be your honor-bonded partner. Lyra's smile widened, radiant and genuine, lighting up the room more than the twin moons outside. You truly mean it? She asked, almost in disbelief. I do, Ethan said firmly. I mean it with all I am. I don't know what challenges lie ahead, but I will face them with you. Together, relief, joy, and a quiet triumph filled the chamber. The bond they had formed through trust and shared struggle had transformed into something deeper, a commitment that bridged to worlds, to species, and to hearts for the next few cycles. They worked together to formalize the honor-bonded partnership according to Aurelian traditions. Ethan learned the rituals, the symbols, and the responsibilities. Guided patiently by Lyra, it was a process that demanded patience, humility, and understanding, yet it strengthened their connection further. They laughed together, stumbled through mistakes, and celebrated small successes, forging a bond that was both official and deeply personal. One evening, as the twin moons rose over the horizon, Ethan and Lyra stood side by side near the chamber window. The barren landscape of Aurelian 4 stretched endlessly before them, yet for the first time, it felt less hostile, less lonely. You have changed everything for me, Lyra said softly. Not just with your hands or your knowledge, but with your heart. You have shown me what it means to be strong, to be brave, to be free, and you've changed me too. Ethan replied, his voice quiet but sincere. You've shown me courage that isn't about fighting or surviving. It's about believing in someone, trusting them, and standing with them no matter what. That is stronger than anything I've ever known. They shared a moment of silence, letting the words and feelings settle. Outside, the moons cast silver-green light over the jagged rocks, illuminating the small chamber where 2 lives had become intertwined. In ways neither could have imagined. Tomorrow, Lyra said finally, we will send a message to the Empire. We will tell them that this union is official, that I have chosen you, and that we will face the future together. Ethan nodded. We'll face whatever comes, side by side. No matter what challenges they throw at us, we'll endure. We're stronger together. Lyra reached out, her delicate hand brushing against Ethan's. The touch was gentle but full of meaning, a promise, a connection, and a silent declaration of courage. Together, she echoed Dot as night fell over Aurelian 4. The chamber glowed softly with the light of repaired systems, the twin moons outside, and the bond between two beings who had found something rare and precious: trust, courage, and love that transcended worlds. The coming days would not be easy. The Empire might resist, and there would be those who could not accept a human as an honor-bonded partner to a princess. But for now, Ethan and Lyra allowed themselves to simply exist in the quiet triumph of their decision. They had chosen each other, not out of duty, but out of heart. And sometimes, that was more powerful than any law, any tradition, or any expectation. Ethan looked at Lyra, his eyes reflecting the soft glow of the twin moons. "No matter what happens," he said, "we face it together. Always." Lyra smiled, her eyes shining with the certainty that had taken years to grow. "Always," she agreed. Outside, the barren landscape of Aurelian seemed less threatening, less lonely. Within the chamber, two hearts had found courage, hope, and the promise of a shared future. And as the twin moons rose higher, casting silver light across the rocky terrain, Ethan and Lyra knew that the union they had formed was not only a choice of heart, but a beacon of hope, a testament to courage, empathy, and the power of connection. They were no longer simply a human and a princess from distant worlds. They were a team, a partnership, and a living example of what could happen when trust, bravery, and compassion overcame fear and tradition. And somewhere in the quiet hum of the chamber, they both understood a truth that neither had spoken aloud yet: the Empire, the stars, and even fate itself could test them. But together, they could face anything, because they had chosen each other, because they had said, "I do." The twin suns of Aurelian IV had risen high in the sky, casting light across the jagged landscape that seemed less harsh than before. The barren moon no longer felt empty or hostile. For Princess Lyra and Ethan Ward, the events of the past cycles had transformed not only their lives, but the way they saw the world and each other. Inside the chamber, preparations were underway. The honor-bonded partnership between the human and the princess had been formally declared, with all necessary rituals completed according to Aurelian tradition. It was a union unprecedented in the history of the Empire, a human recognized not by birthright, but by courage, action, and heart. Ethan moved carefully around the chamber, checking the life support systems and reinforcing the walls against unexpected attacks. Lyra floated slightly in her chair, observing him with quiet admiration. She had never imagined that a human could become such a vital part of her life, nor that her own courage could inspire so much. "Everything seems ready," she said softly, her glowing eyes fixed on him. "Do you feel ready for what comes next?" Ethan paused, looking out the window at the distant horizon where the fleet might appear at any moment. "I don't know what the Empire will say," he admitted, "but I do know this: we face it together. That's what matters. If they question us, we will show them that courage and trust are stronger than fear and tradition." Lyra's smile was radiant, full of warmth and determination. "Then together we will face whatever comes," she said. "And perhaps we will change the Empire in the process." The first signs of the fleet's return appeared as small glimmers on the horizon. Lyra's people were cautious, approaching slowly to assess the unprecedented union. The counselor, once stern and unyielding, led the group, her eyes narrowing as she took in the sight of a human and a princess standing side by side. "United and unwavering, you have made your choice," the counselor said, her tone measured but softer than before. "And you have defied tradition." "Yes," Lyra replied firmly. "I have chosen life, courage, and trust over fear and conformity. This human is my partner because he has earned my respect and my heart. I will not apologize for that." A murmur ran through the gathered Aurelian officers and officials. Some were shocked, others confused, and a few whispered admiration at Lyra's courage. Humans were rarely seen in the Empire, and never in a position of honor. Yet here was a man whose actions had spoken louder than words, whose courage had inspired change not only in the princess, but in her people. Ethan stepped forward, his voice steady. "I am not of your world, and I do not claim any title by birth, but I stand here because I believe in trust, courage, and the choices we make. Princess Lyra and I have chosen each other. That is what matters. The counselor's eyes softened as she studied the pair. She had witnessed acts of bravery before, but rarely had she seen courage combined with compassion in such a pure form. Lyra's health had improved under Ethan's care. Her spirit had strengthened, and together they represented a union of worlds that could not be ignored. "Very well," the counselor said finally. "You have faced the Empire's scrutiny and proven yourselves. This union is unusual, but it shall be accepted. Let it be known that courage and action, not tradition alone, define honor in our empire." A quiet cheer rippled through the gathered officers and citizens who had arrived with the fleet. The Aurelian people were witnessing a moment of history, a moment when rules bent, hearts united, and a human had earned a place among them. Lyra exhaled deeply, relief washing over her. For the first time in cycles, she felt free to act, to choose, and to embrace the life she wanted. Ethan reached out and took her hand gently, their fingers brushing together in silent affirmation. Outside the chamber, preparations began for the journey back to the imperial capital. The union of human and princess was to be celebrated, not hidden. Banners of silver and green flew alongside the ships, and citizens whispered of hope, courage, and the possibility of change. During the journey, Ethan and Lyra spent time planning ways to combine human ingenuity with Aurelian technology. The Empire was vast, and its people highly advanced, yet they had been constrained by rigid rules and traditions. Together, the pair envisioned new ways to strengthen society, improve lives, and encourage cooperation across planets. "You have changed not only me," Lyra said quietly one night as they floated above the surface of Aurelian 4, "but perhaps the whole Empire, humans. You see possibilities where we see limits. You give hope where fear dominates." Ethan smiled. "And you've shown me that courage is more than physical strength. It's determination, trust, and the will to act even when others doubt you. Together, we can make a difference, not just for ourselves, but for everyone." By the time they reached the capital, word of their union had spread across the Empire. Citizens and officials alike gathered to witness the unprecedented event. Lyra and Ethan emerged together, side by side, a living testament to what courage, trust, and connection could achieve. The High Council welcomed them formally, acknowledging the humans' contributions and the princess's courage. For the first time, humanity had a recognized place in Aurelian society, not as conquerors or invaders, but as equals and partners. Festivities followed, a celebration of courage, ingenuity, and the union of worlds. Ethan was introduced to scholars, engineers, and leaders of the Empire, each curious to learn from him, to see how human ideas and technology could enhance Aurelian society. Lyra moved with confidence, radiant in her restored strength and glowing with pride. Together, they represented hope, a future where tradition and innovation could coexist, where empathy and courage could redefine leadership. In private moments, away from the crowds and ceremony, Ethan and Lyra reflected on how far they had come. "Do you remember the first day I found you?" Ethan asked quietly, his eyes meeting hers. "I do," Lyra replied, smiling. "I was afraid, confined, and lonely. And then you appeared, a stranger from another world, yet somehow the most familiar presence I had ever known. And now?" Ethan asked softly. "Now," she said, her eyes shining with emotion, "I am free, strong, hopeful, and I have you by my side." Ethan reached out, taking her hand gently. "And I have you. We faced fear, danger, and the unknown, and we came through stronger, together." Outside, the Empire thrived. Citizens discussed ideas, debated policies, and shared stories of courage and ingenuity. The union of human and princess became a symbol, proof that barriers could be broken, that fear could be overcome, and that trust and action could change even the oldest traditions. Ethan and Lyra spent their days exploring the Empire, learning from its people, and sharing their combined knowledge. Together, they developed technologies to improve life across planets, created systems to help those previously overlooked, and inspired a new generation to embrace courage, empathy, and innovation. At night, they would stand on a balcony overlooking the capital, twin moons rising in the sky. Lyra rested her hand on Ethan's shoulder, her voice soft. "We did not just survive," she said. "We changed everything. For ourselves. And for the Empire." Ethan nodded, feeling the weight and beauty of their journey. "And it's only the beginning. There will be challenges, obstacles, and hard choices. But together, we can face anything." The twin moons reflected in Lyra's glowing eyes. And for a moment, the entire galaxy seemed still, as if acknowledging the quiet triumph of courage, trust, and heart. Two beings from different worlds had not only found each other, but had changed the course of history. In the quiet hum of the Imperial chambers, a simple thought settled in both their hearts. We are stronger together. We have faced fear and tradition, and we have prevailed. This is our dawn, and the Empire's new beginning. And somewhere on the balcony, overlooking the twin suns rising over Aurelian 4, Lyra whispered softly, almost to herself, "He touched my life and changed the stars." Ethan squeezed her hand gently, a quiet smile on his face. "And you touched mine. Together, we will shape the future." The Empire, once rigid and constrained by tradition, had begun to change. A human had become a symbol of hope and courage, and a princess had discovered strength beyond expectation. They were not just survivors, not just partners, they were pioneers of a new age. Proof that trust, courage, and empathy could bridge worlds. And as the twin suns climbed higher in the sky, casting light across the vast empire, Ethan and Lyra stood together, hand in hand, facing the future with courage, hope, and unwavering unity. Because in the end, their story was not only about survival or love, it was about the triumph of the human spirit, the power of trust, and the belief that even the smallest actions could change everything. And in that quiet, shining moment, the galaxy itself seemed to hold its breath, acknowledging a simple truth: humans, with their courage, ingenuity, and heart, could inspire even the oldest and most distant civilizations to change for the better.